Welcome to this deep dive. We're here to really unpack some interesting ideas and see what they mean for you.
That's right.
Today, we're looking at something pretty fascinating, an analysis of habits that, well, seem to separate people who are doing okay financially from those who are, consistently struggling.
Hmm.
Our jumping off point is this video from Alex.com on YouTube. It's called 15 Things Poor People Do That the Rich Don't.
Okay.
Now, they put this together based on insights from mentors, millionaire friends they consulted. So it's based on observation.
Right. Real world observation, or at least reported observation.
Exactly. And we need to say up front, obviously, life's complicated. Everyone's situation is different. Exceptions exist.
Absolutely. It's not about painting everyone with the same brush.
Not at all. But this deep dive, our mission today, is really to look at these patterns, these 15 points, and pull out the core ideas. See if they're insights you can maybe use.
Yeah, it's about finding those potential takeaways, things that might resonate, things that could, spark some self-reflection or maybe even suggest a useful shift.
Okay, let's do it. Where do we start? Point one.
Point one is about time management and entertainment.
Ah, okay. This one definitely caught my eye. The video suggests that folks facing financial difficulties, well, they often spend quite a bit of time watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
especially what they call meaningless television. Think reality shows, maybe constantly having a favorite news channel on.
Right. Passive consumption.
And the contrast they draw is with wealthier people who they observed tend to either want to be on TV themselves or, spend their time on more, let's say, productive things.
Yeah, the underlying idea there seems to be about opportunity cost, doesn't it?
Explain that a bit.
Well, time is, finite. You can't get it back.
Yeah.
So the observation suggests that maybe a lot of this valuable time is going into something passive, something that doesn't necessarily build skills or move you towards goals.
So hours watching TV could be hours learning something new. Yeah. Or networking.
Or even just planning, strategizing, that kind of thing.
They did mention, like unwinding with a sitcom, Big Bang Theory was an example used in discussions around this topic.
Right.
But the video kind of pushes back, suggesting maybe it's less about recharging and more about, like, escaping problems instead of tackling them.
That's a subtle distinction, isn't it? Relaxation versus pure escapism that delays action.
Yeah. And the favorite news channel thing that also struck me, the idea that you might be getting a very narrow view.
Exactly. That's the filter bubble concern. If you're only hearing one perspective, it can reinforce what you already think and maybe stop you from seeing the bigger picture.
So what's the alternative they suggest?
Well, the video hints at using the internet maybe for a quick overview, get the headlines from different sources, and then move on. Focus on your own stuff.
Right. Get the info you need and then focus back on your own life, your own goals. Okay. Makes sense. Let's move to the second one, health and nutrition. This one was pretty blunt in the video. It says many people struggling financially maybe don't prioritize understanding food, nutrition basics, how it affects them.
A tendency towards high sugar, high fat, maybe not much actual nutritional value.
Yeah, exactly. And they connect this directly to having, well, less potential, physically, mentally, professionally.
Even romantically, they mention.
Right. Which sounds harsh, but the underlying point.
I think the core idea is that your health is like your fundamental asset, right?
Yeah.
If you're running on empty because of poor nutrition, it impacts your energy, your thinking.
Your ability to actually do things.
Precisely. It's harder to chase opportunities, work effectively, build relationships if you're not feeling physically or mentally up to par. The video sort of paints it as a major headwind.
Yeah, it's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. Taking care of yourself isn't just nice to have, it's fundamental.
Exactly.
Okay, point three. Consumer habits. This one's interesting. The observation is that people struggling financially often really focus on buying things on sale.
Mm-hmm. Hunting for discounts.
But with one big exception they noted, stocks. The one thing they actually suggest buying on sale, people often don't.
Right. It's an interesting paradox they highlight.
So what's the interpretation there? Is it just about saving money?
Well, the video implies it might be more about mindset. Like, constantly chasing sales might reinforce a feeling of scarcity.
Like you can only afford things when they're marked down.
Maybe. And the suggested shift is towards focusing energy on increasing your income, which gives you more choices, rather than just trying to shave pennies off expenses constantly.
That makes sense. Focusing on growth versus just reduction.
And there's maybe a subtle point, too, about perception. If something's always on sale, is it really that desirable? Or does it make you look like someone who, well, can't afford the regular price?
Yeah. That unspoken visual element.
Yeah.
Okay. Point four. Daily routines and mindset. Waking up later.
Ah, yes. This one they flagged as potentially sensitive, but an observed pattern. The idea is that folks who struggle financially long-term often got into the habit of waking up later, especially when younger.
And the connection they draw is, what, laziness?
Not explicitly laziness, I think, but more a lack of focus, maybe, on growth, on education, on sort of seizing the day during those really important formative years.
Less proactive, more reactive to the day.
That seems to be the implication. Those early hours, they argue, are valuable for focused work, exercise, planning.
And they mentioned a paradox.
Yeah, that by maybe not prioritizing that growth early on, you might end up having to work much, much harder later in life just to tread water, just to stay afloat.
And they probably contrasted this with famous early risers, right?
Yeah.
Gates, Musk, Buffett, people known for getting up early.
Exactly. It paints that picture of intentionality, using the whole day. It's less about just the hours and more about the mindset it represents.
Right. Okay, point 5. This one's about leisure time too, but specifically watching sports. A lot of sports.
Unless you're actually involved, right? Like an athlete or an owner.
If you're just a spectator, the video frames it as, well, another form of escapism that doesn't really add anything to your life.
The core idea seems to be spectator versus participant.
In your own life.
Yeah. Is enjoying sports taking up so much time and energy that it's pulling away from time you could invest in your own projects, your own goals, your own game?
It's a nudge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, are you more passionate about whether your team wins than about achieving your own wins?
That's a good way to put it. It encourages thinking about where your focus and enthusiasm are really going. Active participation versus passive observation.
Okay, now for one that might make people uncomfortable. Point 6, personal hygiene. Showering less frequently.
Yeah, the video admits this was kind of a surprising observation for them too, but they argue it has real consequences.
How so?
Well, think about service jobs, for example, or any job involving interaction. Presentation matters. Basic hygiene influences how people perceive you, whether they trust you, whether they want to be around you.
So it affects first impressions, rapport.
Definitely. And they suggested it impacts personal relationships, too. If people find it unpleasant to be physically close to you, that's obviously going to limit your social connections.
And they tied it back to routines, suggesting an early shower could be like a first small step to a productive day.
Sort of framing it as part of that overall self-care that builds confidence and readiness. Even small habits can ripple outwards.
Right. Okay, point 7. This feels more familiar. Blame versus responsibility.
A classic distinction. The observation is a tendency for those struggling to blame external factors, the system, the boss, bad luck.
Versus the wealthy, who, they say, tend to take ownership.
Yeah, take responsibility for the outcome, learn from things that go wrong, and crucially, focus on their response to events, which is something they can control.
So it's about shifting from feeling like a victim of circumstances to feeling like you're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. It's about agency. The video stresses that while you can't control everything around you, you are largely in charge of key things like your effort, your learning, your reactions. Waiting for the world to change for you isn't the strategy they endorse.
Got it. Point 8, financial preparedness, savings.
This is a big one. The observation is a lack of savings among those struggling, making them vulnerable to unexpected events.
Like a car repair or a medical bill.
Exactly. Or even missing out on opportunities that might pop up. If you have no buffer, an emergency can force you to sell assets cheaply or take out high-interest loans.
Which just digs the hole deeper.
Right. Whereas someone with savings has options. They can weather the storm, maybe even use the situation to their advantage if an opportunity arises from it.
So savings equals flexibility, resilience,
Yeah,
options.
pretty much. It's that crucial safety net, that foundation.
Okay, next up, point 9, credit, how it's used.
Yeah, the observation is that those struggling often use credit for, well, consumption, buying things now that they maybe can't quite afford.
Like a big TV, designer gear, the latest phone.
Stuff like that. Unless, they add, there's a clear plan for that item to make money.
And the contrast is with wealthier individuals using credit more strategically.
Right. Using it as leverage for investments or for things that are expected to generate more income than the loan costs. It's a tool for growth, not just for immediate gratification.
So the principle is, earn it, before you spend it, especially on depreciating assets or pure consumption.
That's the core message. Think about the return. Is this purchase building wealth or just draining it? If it's the latter, save up first.
Differentiating liabilities from assets, basically.
Okay, point 10. This is another sensitive one. Family planning.
Yes. The observation noted is a tendency towards having more children earlier in life among those facing financial hardship.
And they link this directly to the cost.
They do. They mention the high cost of raising a child, citing around $250,000 in developed countries, and suggest this timing can make it much harder to get ahead financially, especially if resources are already stretched. And they connect it to things like education levels, environment.
Yeah, suggesting it can sometimes be part of a cycle that's hard to break out of. This is contrasted with wealthier individuals often waiting until they feel more financially secure.
It's a really complex issue with huge social factors, obviously.
Absolutely. But the video presents it as an observed financial pattern, linking family size and timing to economic trajectory. It highlights the long-term financial weight of those decisions.
Understood. Okay. Point 11, preventative health care checkups.
The observation here is that regular medical checkups might be neglected more often by those struggling financially.
Which seems counterintuitive because ignoring problems can make them worse and more expensive later.
Exactly the point they make. They use cancer detection as a key example. Finding it early drastically improves outcomes and is often less costly than treating advanced disease.
So skipping checkups to save money now could cost you hugely in health and finances down the road.
It's that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure idea. Being proactive about health as an investment.
Makes total sense. Point 12 is quite straightforward. Spending money you don't have yet.
Yeah, basically living on anticipated income or relying heavily on credit for everyday expenses.
The danger being that future income isn't guaranteed.
Right. Precisely. It creates a precarious situation and can easily lead to a debt spiral if things don't pan out as hoped. The advice is simple. If you can't comfortably afford it now, wait.
Live within your means. Financial discipline 101.
Pretty much. Income first, then expenditure.
Okay, 13. Social circles, who you hang out with.
Right. The video brings up that old idea. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
And the observation is that people struggling financially often primarily associate with other people struggling financially.
Yes, and the potential downside highlighted is that this can sometimes reinforce limiting beliefs or a sense of this is just how things are. It might hinder thinking bigger.
So the suggestion is to actively seek out people who inspire you, people who are achieving things.
Yes, surround yourself with influences that lift you up, that expand your sense of what's possible, and crucially, maybe create some distance from circles that are consistently negative or stagnant.
So it's about the influence of your environment on your mindset.
Exactly. Your network can either pull you up or hold you back. Consciously curating it is the advice.
14. Execution and perseverance. Getting things done.
This one's key. The video acknowledges external challenges are real, but emphasizes that your dedication, your effort, that's controllable.
They talk about failure rates for businesses being high.
Yes, but then they flip it. The only businesses guaranteed to fail are the ones you never start.
Ah, nice. So the message is take action.
Take action, get feedback, learn, iterate. Don't be paralyzed by fear of failure. They even use their own YouTube channel journey as an example of just starting and sticking with it.
It's that grit factor. Ideas are great, but execution is everything.
Absolutely. And resilience. Bouncing back from setbacks, learning, adapting, that growth mindset again.
Okay, last one. Point 15. This sounds like a bit of tough love.
It is pretty direct. The message is essentially, the world doesn't owe you anything. Meaning you are ultimately responsible for your own success. Waiting for handouts or expecting things to just fall into your lap isn't the path. Rewards, they argue, tend to flow to those who put in the work, who persevere, learn, adapt.
So self-reliance is the core theme here.
Very much so. Taking ownership. It challenges that youthful optimism, maybe, that success will just happen, and replaces it with the idea that success is built through effort.
A call to stop waiting and start doing.
Precisely. Recognizing your own agency and power to shape your path, even if you find helpful people along the way. Oh, and there was a bonus observation, too.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Religiosity. They noted a statistical correlation. Those struggling financially tend to be more religious than the wealthy.
Interesting. And the interpretation?
The interpretation offered was that successful people might rely more on their own efforts and plans, whereas those struggling might be more inclined to hope for or rely on external intervention or help, perhaps divine.
Like looking inward versus looking outward or upward for solutions.
Kind of. They used Mark Zuckerberg as a quick example. Someone known as atheist who maybe seemed to lean more publicly towards religion later, possibly for strategic or political reasons, rather than inherent reliance. It was presented just as a statistical observation and one possible interpretation.
Got it. Just another data point they observed.
Mhm.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into these 15 points from LX.com, it's definitely a thought-provoking list.
It is. And again, these are observations, potential correlations, not hard and fast rules, not judgment.
Absolutely critical to remember. Your life, your context, it's unique.
The real value, I think, is using this as a mirror for some honest self-reflection.
Couldn't agree more. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is, which one or two of these points, if any, really hit home for you?
Yeah, what resonated?
And then maybe, just maybe, what's one tiny actionable thing you could try out this week based on that reflection? Just experiment. See if shifting one small habit changes anything.
It's about considering how those daily choices, even the small ones, might be steering your course over time.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some valuable things to think about. Keep exploring, keep learning.